Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
And welcome to an episode of Indie Beacon Radio. I'm your host, Alan Bourgeois, and today I have with me Mack Little. That's not her real name, but we'll talk about that in a moment. Welcome, Mack. We're glad to have you here.
I am glad to be here.
All right, so let's deal with your name since I brought it up.
Yeah.
You prefer to go by Mack. Why?
Well, it's my author's name. That's the name of my book, and it's also my real name. My full name is Felicia Mack Little. My middle name is Mack. I'm named after my dad. And since this is my first novel, I thought since I'm a woman trying to break into the horror genre, I thought Mack Little might be more appealing to people who've never heard of me before.
So kind of
write some really scary stuff, which I do write.
but give them a little switch there. Let them think they're getting into the man's world when they find out it's a woman.
well, yeah.
It's okay.
It's terrible, but I thought maybe people would pick up the book more if they saw a man's name on the cover.
And that's perfectly understandable, even though 60% of the books written are by women. But people still have that mindset, which we know through the news lately that there's still a lot of taboos and concepts that are slowly being broken down and stuff. So,
and also I'm writing about vampires, and I don't know, I don't want anybody to think I'm sparkly or YA or anything like that. This is an adult, serious, contemplative book.
Well, let's talk about the book. Progenie. I just asked you a moment ago how to pronounce it, and I can't say it now. Progenie is the book. So tell us about it. What is the book about?
Well, Progenie is about a new adult. She's about 23 years old, and all her life she's had to hide her powers, her intelligence, her strength, and she knows that she's not human, and she spent her whole life trying to figure out who she is or what she is. And now some ancient beings from about 3,000 years ago have found her, and she's not able to control her power and her strength and her dark urges. And this is just her discovery of who she is, where she came from.
Okay, so this sounds like there's going to be a series.
Oh yeah, I've already finished the second book. It's quite long, and I'm gearing up to start the third part of the series. But the second book hasn't been published yet, but it's with the publisher, it's with the editor.
Okay, so what is the title of the second one?
The working title now is Unto the Mother.
Okay.
And,
So she's learning about herself in the first one. What does she do in the second one?
In the second one, her mother is lost, that no one's been able to find her. And so we kind of revealed the secrets of her mother, her lost identity. And there's a bad demon called Ashmodee who's looking for her. And he has a human constrained, and the human has a history with Zen. And I don't think I'm giving anything away, is that this human is leaving dead bodies at her gate, and she's having to figure out, who this, why the guy is doing this, and who is he working on behalf, and how to stop him.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to have dead bodies left at my gate.
Exactly, right? But the story is told from the point of view of, the villain, and the point of view of Zen, as well as other characters. So we learn about, all these characters, and in the end, you figure out why this is all happening, and who her mother really is, which is really
So I want to back up for just a second, because at the beginning you mentioned that it was vampires and fantasy type story. So is the main character a vampire, and that's why she's waking up and discovering herself, or is there something else?
Actually, she is a Dhampir. A Dhampir is the offspring of a vampire and a human. So she's been raised by her human father, and she has all the strengths and abilities of a Dhampir. There, according to Romanian lore, Dhampirs were the offspring of human and a vampire, and their job was to protect humans, their human tribe, from the vampires when they were attacking. So their abilities include super strength. They can sense when the vampire is near. They also have eidetic memory, photographic memory, and but she has a little bit extra because she's not a normal Dhampir.
Okay, so out of curiosity, for a Dhampir, do they have as much strength and energy as a vampire, or slightly less?
Slightly less, but they have a lot of energy, and their energy tends to build, and it causes this state in them called the furia. And if they don't expend their energy, then they tend to get violent and out of control. So they have to have, when they're not working and hunting, they have to find other means of expending their energy.
Now I'm hearing some new terms that I've never heard before. How did you find these terms? Are these things you've created, or did you do some research of some sort?
I did a lot of research as far as my supernatural creatures. All of my supernatural creatures can be found in lore. I pull a lot of them from the Bible, from the Quran, and from the ancient Sumerian religions. And but as far as you know, things like the energy buildup, I had to come up with terms like that. And so I would go back to Latin. Sometimes I would use the Aramaic. For instance, my vampire society is called the Breed, and they have civilized themselves. And the Dhampirs, who were formerly hunters, are the law enforcement, and they're called the sons because all Dhampirs that are born are male. And so I use the Aramaic term to name this force of Dhampirs, and it's called the Maru, and that's from Aramaic.
That's a lot of interesting terms and aspect of the research. Was there a particular reason you went to the Quran and to the other religious aspect to pull things from, or do you have a general knowledge and you just found those things interesting?
Well, I found it interesting because of the concept of demons, and the demons that I write about, they're kind of they're humanized kind of. They have, like, you know, you can recognize human traits in them, you know, and their, I guess, emotions, and there are different types. But in the Bible and the Torah, you know, demons are just demons, and they're evil, and that's all there is to it. But when you go to the Quran, you have jinn, and the jinn are demons, you know, from the Bible, but they have different abilities. You have different classes of jinn. You have the demonic jinns that are ifrit. You have the silat, who are shapeshifters and, you know, kind of mix with human society. And then you have lower jinn, who are more animal-like and really can't manifest into a physical form without being, you know, conjured or controlled by a higher jinn. So, and also thought it was interesting that, you know, demons previously, before they were taken up by the Hebrews, they were Sumerian gods, and people worshiped them and prayed to them. So the whole concept fascinated me, and I looked at it a little bit more because my background, I grew up in the Pentecostal church, and demons played a huge role in, in everything. You got a demon, and, they're always casting demons out. And I thought, I would give them the same background because they give so much power to demons, and they fear them so much that the demons feel powerful around them. So they love to hang out around the Pentecostal church. And so, yeah. So the villain in my second book is a Pentecostal minister. So, yeah.
Interesting. We only have a couple minutes left. I have one quick question for you. With all these terms and research and everything you've done, have you thought of writing a book of definitions and terminology?
Mm-hmm. Actually, I have a glossary at the back of my book, and mm-hmm. and my books are kind of two books in one. Like the first book I had in Progenie, inside of that is the book of Makeda, and the book of Makeda happens all in the 1000 BC, and so you get a sense of the origins of all of the characters, and you get to know them and how they began and evolved. And in the second book, I have the book of Lilith, and we go all the way back to the Garden of Eden, and we look at how demons evolved alongside humans.
Interesting. That's great that you added that terminology in there. It helps people understand things better and stuff. And down the road, it sounds like you have a whole separate book in itself that you can sell for people who want to use those terminologies and write those type of stories and stuff. So something to consider. We're at that point where I've got to let the sponsors do their thing. We'll step away. We'll be right back.
Okay.
What would you do if you had to put your life on hold to parent your parents? You have to laugh to keep from crying. How to Parent Your Parents is a must-read book full of antidotes and practical advice to help parenting your parents. Author Charlotte Kenyon provides insights to help prepare anyone facing the challenges of caring for elderly parents. Check out our website at www.howtoparentyourparents.net.
National Authors Day is November 2nd, 2019 in Houston, Texas. Join us at Discovery Green as we celebrate being a published author and remind the world of the great books that writers constantly create for your enjoyment. You can register at authors.dearindy.org.
Hello, I am the author and poet Denise Bryson. I am the author of The Things That Cross My Mind, Love's Reality, both in book and audio form. I am also noted as one of the best poets of 2011. I have two new projects coming up. One is the Blinky series, where Blinky tells us all about our coins and our bills for our children. I also have a book coming out called Say Ye. It's quotes from Denise Bryson, just inspirational and that will help you along the way.
Hi, this is Alan at Ask Alan Anything, a podcast designed to help you learn about publishing and marketing your books. So join us live on Facebook at 8 p.m. Central Daylight Time. The page is Indie Beacon Radio. Ask any questions about publishing and marketing your book. We're here to help you, and we've been doing it for a long time. So I hope to see you then. Thanks.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
And welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. This is your host, Alan Bourgeois, and I have with me Mack Little, who's talking about her book, which is a vampire and much more than that type of book. It's actually quite interesting to hear all the terminologies that she's researched and done. So if you haven't seen the first half, catch the first half of the show. You have traveled a great deal. You were in the Army, if I understand correctly. So you got to do a lot of traveling. I see behind you, you have a Turkish smoker and some other items and stuff. Did that travel help you when you were writing the books?
Absolutely, and it kind of spurred some of my ideas. I like to go to Paris once a year, and I was walking down the street one day, Rue Amélie, and I came across this interesting little building. And it actually, it was so fascinating to me. I took pictures of it from all the angles, and that's the catalyst of the first book. It's a gallery where a mad vampire, runs it, searching for Nicole, a lost vampire, the lost mother. And there is also, I wrote about it in the first book, and I had heard about it. I come across it on the internet, I guess. It was a abandoned castle in France, and it's surrounded by a moat. And I was just fascinated by it. So I put it in the first book. I wrote about it a little bit, and when I started the second book, I'm like, I have to see this castle. So the next time I went to Paris, I got a train ticket, took a 3-hour train ride to Western France, and then I rented a car and drove 3 hours into the countryside to get to this castle. And I stayed in a farmhouse, and I told them what I wanted to do, and they go, "Oh, the owners or the groundkeepers are crazy. They'll shoot you if you go there." I'm like, 3,000 miles to see this castle. I'm going to risk it. So I went and I trespassed. And I got my pictures of the castle from every angle. It was like seeing a celebrity. And then, this is the coolest part. When I got back, I was on this mailing list, and it turns out that they had created a GoFundMe type deal where they wanted to restore the castle, and I could buy shares in the castle and be an owner. So I bought a few shares in the castle. Now I own it, and I can go to it anytime I want to.
Nice. That's really good that you were able to do that and use it for the story and stuff. You have other countries and locations. You mentioned earlier you have the Pentecostal preacher who's a villain. So where are they based in?
Well, the villain is based in my hometown, Conyers, Georgia, and he travels to Houston, to harass Sin. And one of my vampires lives in an abandoned medieval village in Italy. And it exists. It's called Calcutta. It's an abandoned medieval village. It's been artists moved into it and squat there. And so I made my pilgrimage to Calcutta. I stayed in the neighboring medieval village called Mazzano, and I hiked 2 miles to get to Calcutta, which is at the top of this, huge plateau. I had to climb. It was exhausting, but it was wonderful. I was glad I did it. It was the most beautiful countryside, and I was able to get nuances that I wasn't able to find in the books for my descriptions of the settings.
Now you're married, so does your husband read your novels while you're working on them, or does he share any insights?
No.
He stays away, huh?
Yeah, I tried. I tried getting him to read them in the beginning, and usually he just did proofing. He corrected my grammar, and I really didn't have any. And the way I write a scene at a time, and sometimes I go out of order, so he's not able to, see the story in context. So he's not able to give me any good feedback. So I have critique groups, and if it hadn't been for the critique groups, I don't think I ever would have got through my novel, because they gave me feedback, they gave me encouragement, and they gave me accountability because I had to have at least 10 pages every week to show to them. So, yeah.
Now, you mentioned it's a series. You've got book 2 going through the editing process now, and you're going to be starting on book 3. How many books do you see in the long term for this series?
I see, I don't even see an end to it because there's so many different directions that the story can go in. And I like to do character studies, and basically that's what my books are. I mean, I love horror and I love fantasy, but when I read a book, I like books that emphasize character. So what I've done is I've created these characters, and I have them compiled in a database, and and I have like intricate worksheets on them, and then I come up with a trope, and I just put the characters in the middle of the trope, and see how they react to it. So yeah, it can go any direction because I have several characters that readers have responded to and that they really like, and they have histories, and I can go into their histories at any time. Once I get to a point that I'm done talking about Zen and her family.
Now, because you have all these characters, and if you're like many of us authors, you probably have them chatting up a storm in your head, do you?
Yes, they're always talking to me, and it's so weird. I go for walks every morning, and and I'm listening to a book on tape when I walk, but then my characters start talking, and they have this conversation, and I'm laughing. Sometimes they make me cry. I feel really schizophrenic, but yeah. And when I go to bed at night, I listen to my characters while I go to sleep. I tell myself a story, and I think about what Claudius is up to, or what Emmett might be up to right now. So yeah, I think about them all the time.
Good. So there are plenty of characters to work with. Are there any other types of genres that you're interested in writing?
Yeah, actually, right now, the reason I'm kind of waiting to get started on my 3rd book is I want to write a historical romance. And so I've been working on that for a couple of years, and I'm almost done with it. I finished the 1st draft, but it's a romance. And the romance genre demands that, the central couple consummate, but they never got to it. So I had to go back and find another central couple. But my historical romance, the working title is Love and Peace, but I think it's going to change. But it's set in Jamaica in 1650, during the British invasion. And from my first focus, the main character was a group of escaped slaves called Maroons that lives in the mountains of Jamaica. And the girl, the offspring of these Maroons is a girl. She's a witch. She practiced obeah, which is illegal in Jamaica now because it's sorcery. And she was born free. And the romantic interest is a boy born in France who's a Huguenot, and he's being persecuted by Louis XIV and his predecessors, because Louis is still a child around this time. But his family is persecuted. He ends up killing a dragoon, and he has to escape to the Caribbean, and they meet. He's working with the British as a buccaneer, and the buccaneers help the British to put down the Maroons during the invasion. So he's supposed to, they're on opposite sides of the invasion, and they find love and peace.
I was wondering if France was going to come into that play because of the amount of travel you did, so I'm glad it did for you. We are at that point where we do need to take another break, but we'll be right back.
know the true cost of being published? In the Author's Revolution workbook, B. Alan Bourgeois gives you hands-on tools to use and to understand the true cost of being published. He will also give you information about low-cost or free programs that are designed to help you market your book. B. Alan Bourgeois has been helping hundreds of authors since 2011, educating them on how to better market and sell their books. Buy the Author's Revolution workbook exclusively at indielector.store.
For the Techno Thrillers books, the Enigma book series. Technology, today's weapon of choice, the cyber good guys versus the cyber bad guys.
We invite you to join our website, theenigmaseries.com, where you will get sample chapters, sample audibles, book trailers, and you can sign up for our mailing list. The books are available in ebook, paperback, and Audible. Thank you.
Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
And welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. This is your host, Alan Bourgeois, and I have Mack Little with me. We were talking about her book, Progenie, and other titles that she's working on, other books, part of the series, as well as her historical romance that she's going to be working on. Where can people find more information about you and your books?
You can find it at my Facebook page. It's Mack Little. It's my author page. You can just Google Mack Little and I'll come right up. And you can go to mack.little.com. I'm sorry, mack-little.com. And that's my web page. And from there, you can go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble to purchase the book. Or on my Facebook page, I offer my book for sale, signed copies, if that's what you would like.
Okay. And you have events that you attend and stuff like that. So you have a calendar on your website?
Yeah, I do have a calendar with all of my appearances coming up.
Great. With the last couple minutes we have, do you have words of encouragement or advice for someone who wants to write?
Yes. I know a lot of writers who are getting bogged down with the research, and they're researching and not starting a novel. Start the novel and use what research you have, and then research it as you go. Don't wait, because you'll be researching forever. You don't know when to stop. You should just start writing, craft your story, think of your plot, and then and weave your research in later. I can't emphasize enough how great getting feedback on your work is. I was floundering. I didn't know which way to go with my story, and I wasn't writing. And going to a critique group really helped get me on track. It helped me to see what was working, what was not. And I'm learning, the rules of writing and what pleases an audience. And critique groups are great if you can find one, and they should be easy to find.
Right, yeah, you had mentioned the critique group earlier, and the commitment you had to do every week and stuff. So it sounded like that worked really well for you. Are you traditionally published or indie published?
I'm published by a small press, Elysian Press. So traditional.
Good. Okay. And you mentioned your website, and I just want to touch base on that again. It's mack-little.com?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And your time frame on the second book, you've got it in the editing process now, but you're hoping for maybe when to have it out?
Hopefully by the end of next year.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very hard to tell, but I'm hoping by the middle of next year, the end of next year. Yeah.
And the working title again is?
Unto the Mother.
Okay. And Progenie is the first, I know, I keep saying it wrong, is your first one. And it's available, and of course it's available on your website and on Amazon and Facebook, as you mentioned. I want to thank you very much, Mack, for being with us, and we wish you the best of luck.
All right, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. To learn more about Indie Beacon services, to be a guest on the show, or to advertise on our show, please visit our website at indiebeacon.com.